Hello everyone, welcome back to PM Studios Photoshop Tutorials. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys a little bit of web photo editing. So this is going to be photo editing targeted towards making graphics for your website. It should be actually it's going to be a rather long Photoshop tutorial, so I want to go ahead and get started on this because I'd rather not cut it into multiple parts if I can help it. So the first thing we're going to do is going to go to File, New. And unlike most normal Photoshop tutorials that we've been doing, we are not going to make this one high definition because it is designed for web editing, so you want to make it around the size that you're going to want it on the website. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and make it 750 pixels by 410, and let's go ahead and just set this to 350 pixels per inch. Alrighty, and let's go ahead and push OK on that one. We're going to get this blank white sheet, and the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to the paint bucket and fill that. Then we're going to go to the rounded rectangle tool. And if you have the rectangle tool, you're going to push and hold on it, or any of these other ones, you're just going to push and hold, and it's going to drag out the new menu. So with that, we want to go ahead and let me get this all started over. We're going to want to go ahead and open up our rulers. So you can either go to View and then Show Rulers, which is, or just View Rulers, which is also Control R. And Control semicolon will allow you to bring out viewfinders, or little markers, so that you can see where your lines are going. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to break this into 3 parts. We're going to want the outside edges, and then we're going to want one line at every 250 pixels, because this is a 750 pixel range, and we are making 3 slots in this. So there's 250. Oops, cancel that. We want to bring another one out to 500, and that'll do it. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to go ahead and start off by going into our rounded rectangle tool and go up here to this very corner. And the benefit of having these guidelines here is that you don't really have to worry about going outside of the lines because it just kind of snaps to where it needs to be. Now I already have the effects on here for whatever reason it decided to pull the effects on, but the first thing you're going to see is you're going to get this rounded rectangle, and actually we don't want the rounded edges to be 10 pixels, we want them to be 20 pixels. So go ahead and step that up and then redraw the rectangle. Yeah. Alright, there we go. Alright, so we redrew the rectangle. You can notice that the rounded edges have a little bit more of a bend to them now. We're going to go into the layer styles, and we're going to go to gradient overlay. Inside here, we're going to go ahead and jump into the gradient itself, and we're going to just make another duplicate, put it around location 50, or put it spot on location 50 if you can. Don't hit return. So, as you can see, I have it at location 50, one at 0, one at 50, one at 100. We're just going to go ahead and change this one at 100 to all black as well, and then go back into the 50 location. We're just going to drop this ever so slightly. Not so extreme to the point where it doesn't look good, but to that certain point. I mean, preview would normally be on. So this is kind of what we want. So we're just going to go ahead and go with that. And this is the first thing that you want to do. You want to group it. So we're going to group this, and we're going to call this box 1. Because obviously we have 2 other boxes that we need to work with, and this is going to get really messy with all the layers that we're going to be doing. So this is box 1. Now let's go ahead and go back to the rounded edge, or the rounded rectangle, and let's bring it back down to 10 pixels, and we're just going to drag this out somewhere around there. You don't want to make it too big because we are going to be adjusting it so that it looks a little bit better. Alright, so go into the effects tool, and along with the gradient overlay we're going to want to do a stroke and an outer glow. So first off, let's go with the gradient, and for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set this up so that it starts with a yellow, then goes to an orange, then goes to a red. But we don't want anything that's too overpowering and will be hard to see through, so we're going to want to go ahead and go with all dark colors. And I found that usually you find the color that you want, and you set the blackness, or whatever B stands for here. It's hue, saturation, and I believe it's blackness. probably wrong. So you want to set the B to 81%. Go ahead and push that OK, and then before you dive out of that, I apologize, you're going to want to copy the hex code, because you're going to paste this in all 3 locations. So paste that there, and paste that there. Alright. Okay, and then in the center area, we're going to want to go ahead and go back to that B and change it down to 50%, and that will give you the proper darkness to lightness transition. Now inside the stroke, we want it to be 3 pixels, and on the inside. And you could probably bump that down to 2 pixels if you wanted, but for now we're just going to do, let's do 2. Alright, go ahead and go to the outer glow now. And we're going to repaste that same color code that we had just had, and then we're going to ramp up the spread as far as humanly possible, and then put it at the same pixel width as the stroke. So we want to go ahead and set that to 2, because we had set the stroke to 2 pixels. Go ahead and push OK, and just in case you're wondering what it looks like, we can go ahead and magnify in, and that is a good indicator. So if I just click away from that, you can see even better, because when I have it clicked, it has the item selected and it shows its lines. So you can see that we've got a nice even stroke, and it's got a nice kind of black tone to it. Alright, so this is going to be our text area for the title, but the first thing we're going to want to do again is we're going to want to group this up, and we'll call this group inside box 1 title, because that is going to be the area for the title. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer, or 2 new layers. And in the first layer, we're going to want to go with our pen tool. Kind of start right here in the middle-ish. It doesn't need to be an exact science. And then bring it out for your second point, then bring it back down for your third point. And then close up the triangle. And we'll go ahead and right-click that and click Make a Selection. Where are you? Yeah, Make Selection. Push OK. We are not going to feather it at all. And it doesn't have to be precise. I know this kind of looks a little bit ugly, but again, it doesn't have to be precise. Then we go to our Paint Bucket tool and bada boom. Deselect everything, and we can move this around so that it lines up pretty well. Okay. And now, all we're going to do is we're going to drag this layer down so that we duplicate it, get our cursor tool, move it, Control T to transform it, and then we're just going to flip it. Alrighty. Go ahead and apply that transformation, and then we're just going to drag it all the way over to the other side, and all of a sudden we've got 2. Alright, now we're going to go with an outer glow, change the color of the outer glow to black, and then we want the spread at 0, and we can change the size to about 5. The key point to note is that we are not going to be doing it with that. We should probably do it with like a linear burn, and then adjust the size so that you can actually see it. Oh, that's why I'm not looking at the right one. That is not what you want. Alrighty. So let's bring this back down to an overlay instead, because that's a little less extreme. Actually, you know what? You probably could just go with a normal. There we go. Much better. Alright, bring the spread down to maybe 1, and the size a lot down. So you want it about that, 2% and 7 pixels. And then we're just going to copy this, copy layer style, and we're going to paste it on here. I believe I might have cleared it. Yes, I did. Alright, so you want to make sure that you click on copy, not clear, and then paste it. Today is not my day. Okay. So that kind of gives us this shadowy look on the item itself. And if I'll stop moving it, my mouse is going bad, so it keeps double and triple clicking. Now that we've done that, we want to go ahead and zoom back out so we can go fit screen. And now we want to go here to layer 1, duplicate it, select layer 1 again with its copy, and then merge layers. That way we have the actual icon itself, and then we can control click it. Copied the wrong layer. So since we weren't actually using that one, alright, so here we go. Now we can select the shape layer, drag it down so we have a duplicate, and you want to actually get rid of the outer glow on the second one or it's going to make it too bright. And then select both of them, and we're going to click on merge layers like I did last time, and with that we're going to go ahead and control click this, which will select that, control shift I to inverse the selection. I know this is a lot of commands. And then we're going to go to layer 2, push delete, which is going to get rid of everything outside of the box, push delete again on layer 2 copy, and deselect everything. And if we were to zoom back in, which I will, you'll see that it no longer stretches out beyond that, which is good. That's exactly what we want. So I'm going to go back to fit screen. And then the last thing we want to do inside the title is we want to create a text layer, put it in there, and for this size I'm going to go ahead and use Copper Plate Gothic Bold, which is a all caps text font, which is kind of what we want. And when you want it to be kind of blocky or kind of elegant, depending on what you want, the text font is really going to be describing what kind of business you are. We are a very technical business, the company that I'm making this for, so we want it to be a very blocky very blocky text font. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to 7-point text. We're going to type in basic in all caps. Drag that down to the center. And then double click on the layer styles for that. I'm going to go bevel and emboss. You can do contour as well if you like. And the technique we're going to use is chisel hard. We're going to do a down bevel. And go ahead and leave this where it is because it looks pretty good. And then instead what we're going to do is we're going to change the screen mode to whatever that color is. And if you've done it right, you should still have it copied. So go ahead and push OK. You want to increase that so that it's pretty apparent, and then if you want you could adjust the shadow color. Go ahead and push OK, and then we're going to zoom in real fast. And as you can see, it kind of gives the illusion that it is sticking into it instead of sticking out of it. So that is the end of the title. So we're going to go ahead and zoom it back out to fit screen, and that, like I said, that is the end of the title. So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create lines, separators, if you will. So how we're going to do that is we're going to go to the line tool and replace that with our rounded rectangle tool. And we're just going to set the weight to 2 pixels because we are going to put a gradient on it, but we only want 2 colors, the bottom part of the gradient and the top part of the gradient. And then we kind of want to just separate it so that we have a good idea of how we're going to do this. So I figure we can probably do about 55 pixels for the first separator, and then we're going to increase it a little bit every single time just so that it looks about right. So you're going to want to do about 12 to 13 pixels for each separator, and you'll see that it gradually increases increment as you move along. And if it keeps snapping into place and it's somewhere that you don't want it, just go ahead and push the control button, or if you're on a Mac it's the command button, and that will allow you to manually adjust it without having to worry about the snap to feature. Depending on how many features you have, you can go ahead and stagger how many items you have, but you want to leave a big space in the bottom for the button that you can potentially add at the very end. So you see now we have all of our separators that we need. I have the line tool selected, and it's at 2 pixels, so we're just going to go over here, and it doesn't have to be a precise science because these guidelines will make it snap. So, And that is about all you need to do, because we can copy and paste this one thing. But first off, we need to group it, because we are all about keeping everything organized. We're just going to call this lines, or dividers, or separators, or whatever you want to call them. And then we are going to go down to the gradient overlay, and instead of having this intense gradient, we're going to go ahead and delete that and change this top half to white. Push OK, so you're going to have the black to white gradient. OK, OK again. And now that we have that done, we can just copy this over and over and over again. So for every copy, and I don't mean to do that, for every copy we're just going to click and drag it down. And we're just going to keep doing this. We need 2 more. Alright, once we've got that done, we're going to go ahead and Control semicolon to get rid of that, all of the guidelines, and as you can see, we're good to go with that. So we can get the guidelines back and just drag them off the screen one by one, so that our work area is cleaned up yet again. Oopsies, did not want to drag that. Alrighty. Now, on to the next step, which would be the text inside the lines. So, I would suggest that you do 1 text layer per line, but you don't necessarily have to do that, so we're going to type monthly on that one. The reason why I say that is because there's no conventional formatting in Photoshop, so if you want to do formatting like in Word, say if you want to center everything, you have to manually do that yourself. So I'm just going to open up that text layer and do a drop shadow and a color overlay. We're going to change that to kind of a muddy white, I guess. Dirty white would be a better aphorism for that. And then from here on out, we're just going to click and drag and then adjust that text and then change the type. And as you can see, there is a noticeable difference between the caps and the lowercase. Even though they are all technically capital letters, there is a size difference. So, and another thing you can do is you can adjust the text type to 6 points instead of 7, and that will give you a little extra room to play around with and allow you to expand on what you're typing. I would suggest that you don't bring it any lower than maybe 5 points, because at that point it gets a little hard to read. And there's so few pixels to work with on this actual piece that you may get some pixelated blurriness, kind of like what we're getting here already. But I promise you, the end product does look good. So actually, the more you compress it, the better it looks with these. Especially since we're going to be saving this as a PNG and interlacing it, which means you'll have that stepped up performance. And before we go any further, I want to go ahead and group the text and just call that text. Alrighty, and once again we're going to click and drag to copy that, and then drag it down. The reason why I use the lowermost layer is because it's easier and has a shorter distance to bring down. That's just a personal preference of mine. So you could do space 2. I'm just going to speed this up for the sake of time. And you can center these however you want and change the type however you like. Space 3. Alright, and then one last one. Space 4, and then get that a little bit centered. Alright, and then lastly what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and minimize this, and we're going to duplicate the entire title group And you do that by dragging the entire title group down to the new layer. I know that sounds weird. I know some of you are wondering why you wouldn't drag it down to the new group. It's possible that you could do that, but I'm so accustomed to doing it this way that that's the way I do it. And then we're going to call this button. And we're going to go ahead and drag the entire button down. And kind of get it centered in that bottom area. And then expand it. We're going to get rid of layer copy 2, or layer 2 and layer 2 copy. And then here's where we're going to go ahead and edit this. Hide the text. And go into the layer styles of the actual button itself. And we're going to go ahead and change this to a green. So we want the gradient overlay, the stroke, and the outer glow again. And just as a forewarning, your continue buttons are going to be a little bit bigger, and the rest of your icons are going to be a little bit bigger, just due to the nature of the shrinking that we had to do on this one. So that's something to keep in mind. And it's very possible that you could rearrange the entire process so that it fit better in with that. So that's just a forewarning of mine. So we're going to go ahead and set this to an 81, and we can move around the hue or saturation. So that looks about good. Push OK. Oh, I forgot once again we need to copy that color. And this is the hardest part, because once we're finished all we have to do is change the text a little bit, and we want that at 50, and we're going to drop this down to 50%. Alright. Okay. As you can see, we have that now. And then we're going to go to our stroke. Same thing, inside, black, 3 pixels. And then our outer glow, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make the outer glow same color as that. Bring this down to 3 pixels and do 100% spread. That's going to solve that. And then we need to open up the text layer and change this, or change the text itself. And this is where we're going to want to drop it down to maybe 5 or 6 pixels, because we do have quite a bit to type in this. So with that, we're going to do more info. And we want that in all caps. Center that. And as you can see, it kind of does look out of place because it still has that color. So we're going to go back to the bevel and emboss and change the highlight mode to that same color as the button. And as you can see, it blends in a little bit better now. So once we've got all of this finished, we can go ahead and minimize the entire box 1 group and create 2 new copies of that and call them box 2 and box 3. And then selecting box 2, we can just go ahead and kind of drag it over. And same thing with box 3. Whoopsies. Alrighty. And then inside of this, we can go ahead and edit the title, because everything else for this specific thing would be the same. You can adjust the text if you need to, but the title is the most primary thing, so I'm going to call this Seeker. Go ahead and get that centered, and you're also going to want to adjust the color and such. I will not be doing that just for the sake of time, because I feel that I am kind of running shy on time here. And then in box 3 we do the same thing. Edit all the text that you need to edit, and then edit the title and the color of the title button. Let's go ahead and call that Pro. And get this centered. That's not very centered, is it? That looks a little bit better there. It does take some time to get this worked out properly. Expect to have about a 30-minute work time trying to get all of this laid out and formatted the way you want it to. And once you're finished, you would go to File, Save As, or Control-Shift-C, or Control-Shift-S, sorry. And then we're just going to go ahead and, let me drag this over, and we're just going to go ahead and go here and save it as a PNG. And you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call this tut1. Then it's going to ask you for PNG options if you want it interlaced. Now the difference between none and interlaced is if you have big images on your file or on your website, or if you have a lot of images on your website, you're going to want to interlace all of those images so that people with slower internet connections have something to look at while everything's being loaded. What interlacing does is it actually puts several different layers of the same image in the same image file, each of them with a sliding gradient of worse quality. So it loads up the worst quality first and then starts loading up all of the others until it is finally as crisp and clear as you had intended to make it. Sorry, I can't speak today. So if you're doing website work and you have a lot of images on your website, or rather large images, you're going to want to interlace them so, like I said, they have something to look at when the website is loading. That's pretty much it for today's tutorial. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Please leave any comments or questions in the comment section below, and I look forward to speaking to you next week.